Yo, episode 36 of the Put On Pod. I got my co-host Cal, and I'd like to welcome our guest, Evan Parker, founder of Mantel, and he's got such a sick setup behind him, as opposed to me and Cal. We just got nothing. Look at this. Very boring.
Couple
How's it going, Evan?
What's going on, guys?
Not too much. Yeah, things are good over here. Cal, where are you at right now, by the way?
I'm back home. I'm back in Canada.
Okay.
So yeah, it's cold here, but can't complain. Evan, you're from where are you originally from?
I'm from LA and I'm here now.
You are? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, I know we talked about it in but family safe, everyone's good. You're okay.
Yeah, we got lucky with the fires, but we all know a lot of people who didn't. Really, just it's crazy here right now. It's real sad, but seems like the weather's turning. We're supposed to get rain this weekend, so hopefully it'll be behind us.
That's good to hear.
It's good to hear. So Evan, for people that don't know about you, could you give a little intro, a little bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So you said I'm CEO of Mantel, which is a social network for collectors, like Reddit meets Instagram, all for collectors, sports cards, memorabilia, watches, comic books, stamps, toys, whatever people collect. And I've been doing this now for a year and a half. We just launched the app back in December, so it's pretty fresh. Before that, I was at The Athletic, and so I was at The Athletic for a number of years, and we sold to the New York Times and got to work for the Times for a while. That NASCAR for like 8 years before that, which is why I've got Jimmy Johnson's car on my wall and a helmet from the Daytona 500. Born and raised in LA, massive Dodgers fan. Nothing brings me more joy than the Dodgers. And I balance it out with pain as being a Crystal Palace fan.
Are those your two favorite sports, baseball and proper football?
Basketball is my favorite sport.
Okay.
It's what I can watch any game with anybody playing, and I'm going to love it. But the Dodgers are by far my favorite team. Like I will put a Dodgers game above anything else. But if the Dodgers aren't playing, I'm not going to go watch a Guardians Marlins game and have that much fun. But I can go watch the Sacramento Kings play the Houston Rockets and enjoy that. And then, I've become a proper football fan over the last few years, and Palace is my squad. And so once you pick one, you gotta go all in. And so now I'm in deep.
Yeah, I'm curious. Number one, why Palace? And to your point, yeah, I think it's one of those things from a European versus North American standpoint. I find my friends here might support a team, and then it's flip flop. Oh, I like this player better. LeBron goes to the Lakers. I'm a Lakers fan now. To your point, in proper football, once you pick a team, there's no switching. You're living and dying by that team. Right. So why was it Palace?
So I didn't have a team. I didn't grow up a fan. And when I was at The Athletic, we launched in the UK. We launched a soccer vertical, and I didn't have a team, and I didn't want us to do all this work and me not have a connection to the product and have nobody to root for. And so I asked our writers. I basically threw the question out, and my criteria was pretty simple. The team had to be in London because I don't get to the UK very often, but when I do, I'm in London, so I'm not trying to have to go to like Manchester to go see a game or Liverpool or something like that. It wasn't going to work.
Makes sense.
They couldn't be a top 6 team because I wasn't going to be a bandwagon fan. So your squad, Chelsea, and all Tottenham, like those were off the books automatically. And then they had to be an interesting enough team and good enough that like I'd have a few moments of fun every once in a while. And there's a couple teams. It's like West Ham, it's Fulham, who's now got knocked back, and it's Palace. I guess I could have been like Brentford or something else, but there weren't that many squads that I could choose from. And one of the guys that I was asking grew up in South London, massive Crystal Palace fan, and I figured if I was going to go pick a team, I may as well pick one where I have a homie who also likes them, so I'm not sitting there watching like Brentford play by myself and having nobody that I can commiserate with. So it's been Palace for the last 6-something years, and I've seen a lot of losses, a decent amount of draws, and a team that is usually somewhere between 10th and 14th in on the table. Never really competing, but not actually like on the cusp of relegation either.
Yeah, no, that a lot of draws is an understatement. That's hilarious. I think my last point on Palace is you definitely, if you've been a fan 6 seasons, I feel like there was one season that you guys finished top half, 7th, 8th. You might have just missed Europe. I think that
Yeah.
Europe could come at some point, and so I'm rooting for you when it
I
does.
appreciate
We'll
it.
be there.
Yeah, I
We'll
think
be there.
I think the team is close. They're playing really well right now. They started the season horribly, but they're playing really well right now. If they can sustain it, then they're never a player when the transfer window opens. They're sellers always, and they seem to do a good job backfilling with decent talent. But it's not like the big names. Or I started last year like collecting a bunch of Michael Olise cards, rookie cards. He's on the team. I'm like, this guy's going to be one of the best. Started building, a decent, and then of course transfer window comes, everybody goes after him. He's gone. It's hard to get attached to any of the players on Palace because if they're good, they're not going to be there for very long.
No, I hear you, and you touched on it there in terms of the collector in you. So, like, when and how did you first get interested in collectibles?
It's like a lifetime. Nobody in my family is much of a collector. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't grow up in like a collecting household. But I grew up with two brothers, and so we would collect cards when I was a kid. As soon as I had enough money to get a watch, I bought my first watch. It was like bar mitzvah money. I had $250. Went to the Macy's here in LA and bought a Guess watch for $250 and wore it, all the time. And little by little, I've added to the collection over the years. My car, I drive an 88 Mercedes SE through a 300 SE, like an old. You think about like Coming to America in one of those sedans with like the flags in the front. Like everything, I just like to go deep down the rabbit hole. I like learning about something. I like having things that are a little bit different, a little bit unique, that like bring me joy, but they don't make me feel like I'm just sort of following the trends. And so collecting has always been the thing that kind of fueled that.
I love that. It's funny. What it jogged in my memory is just like when I was a kid, there was a store in my town, and I had an older brother too, and like he was really into sports, but just going into this store and seeing like all the memorabilia and all the autographs and like whatever it was about that, it made me like I needed to just get all these different collectibles, and that was like such a passion of mine too. Now fast forward, obviously you told us about you worked at NASCAR, you worked for the Athletic. What made you decide to start Mantel?
So, it's an original idea of Alexis Ohanian, who built Reddit, and Brent Montgomery. Most people will know Brent more from his work than from his name necessarily, but he created Pawn Stars, one of my favorite shows of all time, Alone, where they, send a bunch of guys out to the middle of nowhere with like 4 things in their pocket and they see who can survive the longest.
Right.
Then the King of Collectibles show on Netflix with Ken Golden. And so Alexis and Brent met each other a few years back. They started talking about business ideas. Both of them are collectors. Both of them really love sports. And they had the same idea that there isn't great content in the collectibles world, at least like pull together great content in the collectibles world. And there's no community. People are kind of out there in a bunch of different platforms or interacting on their own. And there's an idea there as collecting became more and more mainstream. Can we bring all that together into one platform and give people a purpose-built place they can interact with each other about the things they love, their deepest hobbies and stuff like that? And I'd been at the Athletic for a while, and I was working for the New York Times at the time, and it was interesting. It was fun. I was enjoying it, but I missed building. We built the Athletic from nothing into something that the New York Times wanted to go spend a bunch of money on. And then you find yourself in a lot of boardroom meetings and like debating things until your mouth is dry. I'm like, I don't want to be in the debating mode anymore. I really miss the building. And it just so happened that I was put in touch with those guys around the same time, and they had this idea, but they didn't want to go build it themselves. They've got their own businesses that they're running. So it felt like kismet. I was looking, they were looking. I'm a collector, they're collectors, and we got together. Now it's been about 1.5 years.
It's, I've been on the platform. It's such a great idea, such a great concept. And I guess a question I have is, what's been your favorite or most memorable post that you've seen on the platform?
There's a user that always comes to mind when I think about this question, because he collects in such a different way than I do. His username is not Todd Zeal, the old baseball player, and this guy likes to get game worn jerseys, and you always hear about like game worn, but that's like this upper echelon. I'm going to Sotheby's, I'm buying something that costs $100,000 that LeBron wore and was photo matched and all that. This guy's not in that camp. He doesn't have that kind of time, that kind of money.
Right.
So what he does is he goes and like scours eBay for jerseys of very little known players that are game worn. And then he'll go and he'll take the time to photo match them himself, and then he'll go buy it. So he'll get like a Senior Bowl jersey from 2003. He's got I'll have to remember the name, Cal, but he's got some, like CFL jerseys and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it's like
Yeah.
somebody who wore this thing in this one game, and there's almost no footage of it because it wasn't even on TV. And he's out there on like, all photo sites, and he's like photo matching himself.
That's
when
awesome.
I see that, he's not doing it because he's going to go flip it for a lot of money. He's doing it because he loves the hunt. He loves the research aspect of it. He loves to be able to say that he found something like a diamond in the rough, and make something that much cooler out of something that somebody else didn't really value. To him, he can find something about it that's really interesting and cool. It's not the way I collect. I have none of that patience, none of that time. There's no way I could do it. But every time he posts something, I learn something about it. And I'm always really impressed by the way everybody kind of approaches this differently. And the people who like really, have to like roll their sleeves up to get something, I always really respect.
I mean,
super interesting.
I love the like the fact that he's going after like the obscure players, because I remember back in the day there was a time where like me and a lot of my friends were wearing the old school, like champion jerseys.
Yeah.
And we'd go on spring break or whatever, and like we got such a kick out of seeing people that we'd be wearing like the most random, like a Serranus Marshallonis jersey or whoever it is, and you're like, wow, like how does that guy even have it? They're probably shopping at the Champion Outlet and finding it, for 75% off.
Yeah, this dude. There was one I remember. I'm a Terp. I went to University of Maryland, and there's an offensive lineman, this guy Stephen Heyer, who was a good offensive lineman. He played in the Senior Bowl, and this guy was able to find a jersey from the Senior Bowl from an offensive lineman that never made it in the pros. This guy didn't go to Maryland, wasn't a Maryland fan. I have no idea how he ended up deciding that this was a jersey he was going to go get. But like I see him post it, and I'm like, oh shit, this is somebody who I remember from college. But nobody else should know who he is. Nobody else should even care. And he took the time to go find photos of an offensive lineman in a Senior Bowl game and match a jersey. How many of those photos even exist? There's no footage of that. But he was able to say, like, you look at the stitching, you look at this, you look at that. And for me, from where I sit, like that makes it so much more fascinating than if you're just like, hey, this heritage auction sold this thing. I had enough money, I hit buy, and it showed up the next day in the mail. And like, here's this jersey that I just bought.
It's incredible.
That's
and
crazy.
It makes it. It really like is perfectly suited for your platform, where like, you have this community of people that has all these like random interests, and then you see something that somebody posts and you're like, holy shit, like I remember that guy. And then it sparks the engagement.
Totally. He was built for the platform. The platform was built for him. Like guys like that, you don't have to be down that rabbit hole that deep to enjoy it, but to be able to find people like that and just to know that we're building something that a guy like him, who maybe didn't feel like there was people on Instagram or on Twitter or on Facebook who understood what he understood and liked what he liked, that he's able to find a place that's like everybody here. They may not collect the same way. They may not collect the same things, but they'll all respect the way that I'm approaching it.
Yeah, the power of community. Evan, I'm curious from more of a business standpoint, what advice, if any, would you give to someone who's thinking about going off on their own and building a startup?
Yeah, I think about this all the time. Before going into it, I had seen it. I had watched The Athletic get built. I knew how hard it was on the founders of The Athletic. And you're like, I know how hard this is going to be. You don't have a clue how hard it's going to be, or how you're going to take it, right? Like you might be able to say, hey, I've worked jobs before that I work long hours or that are all consuming. But there's something so different about it when it's yours. And if you don't do it, if you don't do something, then the company doesn't exist anymore. Like it's not, somebody else will take care of this, or I'll do it tomorrow. There's just so much stuff. Like it's all consuming. And I think you have to really want it. And I think that social media in general has like, we have created in a way gods out of entrepreneurs. I mean, you see it in even like what's happening in government today. These people who created businesses are like put up on a pedestal. And I think it makes a lot of people think that that's what they want or that's what they should do. And it's not for everybody. And you don't know it's not for you necessarily until you get into it. And once you get into it, sometimes it's too late to say, you know what, I'd rather be working a desk job somewhere else, or I'd rather be doing, it's like, you just really have to know that you want it. And I think that the fewer people that try, in some ways, could be the better. Like, we shouldn't be convincing everybody that they need to go be a founder themselves. Like, there's a lot of good businesses that people should be able to just jump into and help versus create themselves. And so that would be my advice. Just like, make sure that this is something that you want, not because you want to be a founder, not because you want to make a lot of money one day, but because you have an idea that you think really needs to be turned into a business, and you're the best person on earth to do that, and you have what it takes to do that. Like, that should be the impetus.
That's super interesting. Yeah. I don't think enough people are approaching it and talking about it in that way. I think one of the things that always comes to mind for me is, and to your point, everyone's different, right? Some people are more cut out than others. And it's one of those things where, if you want that startup culture, you might be a way better number 3 because, right, you're not taking on all the stress of what being a founder means. And some people might be better number 1, number 2. Like, everyone's got their own roles. It's like sports, right? You might not be the guy, but you're a great number 2, and you can back up and you still have a lot of upside. So
we shouldn't be telling everybody that they can be Tom Brady, right? You need somebody who's going to be the long snapper, and you need somebody who's going to play free safety, and you need somebody who's going to be the water boy. Like, to make a team work, you need all those positions filled. And I think in entrepreneurship, we tend to just talk about the person, like, who's the CEO, who's the founder, who made the billions of dollars. And we don't realize that Elon and Zuckerberg and Altman and all those guys had a lot of people working with them, and a lot of people who didn't come up with the idea, who maybe weren't making the final decision, leading the thing strategically, but they couldn't have done what they did without this army of people behind them. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't try to aspire to be entrepreneurs. I think it's a great path. I've learned more in this last 18 months doing it than probably the 20 years of my career before that. And I've learned a lot about myself, not just about how to run a business, but I've learned a lot about the things that I'm good at, the things that I like, the things I'm well suited to. There's stuff that I'm good at that I'm actually not well suited to. And there's things that I'm not really good at that I actually really enjoy. And you see that a lot more when you're in this position where I don't have like this big team. I can just say somebody else is going to deal with it. I'm doing finance. I'm doing legal. I'm doing operations. I'm doing social media. Like, I'm doing all these things that I would never hire myself for.
Right.
Like, and I think that that's been eye-opening for me to understand a little bit more about myself as a person and as a business person. And so, again, not talking anybody out of it, but I think you really need to want not just not just like the glory at the end, but you have to have an idea that you think needs to exist and that you're the best person for. Otherwise, it's just not worth it.
Yeah. And to your point, like, it's been glamorized, ad nauseum. And unless you're willing to eat, sleep, and breathe it, like, it's so obvious that that's you and you're like in the weeds of it. I've had my own kind of startup experience, and it was the same thing where, like, I got exposed to so much stuff, and it taught me so much more than, anything else that I had ever done in my life. And at the end of it, it like kind of worked out, kind of flamed out. And it was like, I don't know that I could ever be a founder ever again. Yeah. And I'm entrepreneurial, but like, it is a grind, and you really have to eat shit and you figure it out. And there's a lot of tough days. So I think it's very valuable advice. I would just ask, what's next for Mantel? Like, where are you at right now and what's next?
Yeah. So we dropped the app December 11th. We've been a website for a while before that, but the app came out at the end of last year. We've got a product that we're going to be releasing pretty soon. That's going to be our version of like a Facebook group or Discord. So it's a community within the community. We realized pretty quickly that we have this, like Instagram, we've got this continuous feed, but if you care about collecting stamps and you get a feed that has everything everybody else is posting and it's all sports cards, you're going to say, screw it, this isn't for me. I'm going to go somewhere else. But if you had your place that could just be for stamp collectors, then we can build communities within it. We can also build communities for influencers, for creators, for brands. And so Fanatics Live can have a group within Mantel for their customers, for the people that they're trying to court, or a creator. So Mojo Sports gets his own group, and it's for people who want to interact with him, and he can create conversations and channels about the things that matter to him and his followers. And so that's coming out. And I think it'll also allow people to start trading on the platform. It's such a big part of collecting. You get something, you don't always want it, or you want to flip it and get something better. And if we don't provide people that experience or that opportunity, they're going to go somewhere else. And they're going to, if you have to leave Mantel to go do things that make you want to be a collector, make you enjoy your collecting, you might not come back. And so the more of that we can house on our platform, either through partnerships or through product, the better.
Awesome. And I'm curious, just how are you thinking about awareness and exposure? You're talking about bringing different communities within and keeping them on
Yeah.
platform. What is, and again, you don't have to give so much away, but what is the strategic sort of exposure and awareness play for you to get individuals, collectors on platform?
Yeah, I mean, we've spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. We've been able to build an Instagram account that has a good following and continues
Okay.
to grow, and it's been helpful. We work with some influencers, some creators in the sports card space. A lot of them not through like some kind of official we were paying them relationship, but just that they use the platform because they benefit from it and they talk about it to their friends. The way that this is going to grow is through word of mouth. If somebody joins, loves it, tells their
For sure.
buddy, loves it, tells their buddy, loves it, we'll get there. But building community from the ground up is tough. And, we're trying to convince people in a way that the places that they've been spending their time over the last, call it 20 years are not good for this stuff. Facebook, right? Like everybody's been on Facebook since it launched in 2005. It's not great for this stuff. And nobody feels like it's great for this, but people have been on it. They're used to it. They've got their profiles, their friends, and it's hard to get people to change. And an insight that I've kind of gleaned from this process that I didn't know going in is that collectors by nature are a little bit nostalgic, right? Like we have this connection to the past. We're collecting things from years, seasons, decades, eons before. So we're not always early adopters, right? Like, if you're in the NFT world, even in the sneaker world, there's a lot of that, like what's next, what's next, what's next. But if you're a collector, it's like, I want the vintage thing. I want the thing from before. And so people like that are comfortable on a message board that hasn't been updated since 2010. People like that are comfortable being in a Facebook group that has, people who have been on it since the dawn of the internet. That it makes it a little bit tougher to get people to say, that's new, that's cool, I'm going to jump in. And I also think in the collecting space, it's a little bit insulated. It's a little bit gatekeepy. And so people don't like to try new things. They want to make sure first that you are who you say you are, that you love collecting like they do, that you've proven yourself. And so we're constantly having to educate. We're constantly kind of having to prove that this is not some cash grab for us. We didn't just like come out of some, private equity company saying, oh, collecting, like the chart is going up, we should build something for that. We live and breathe this stuff. But we're constantly having to prove our bona fides.
Makes sense. No, I love that. I love that. Derek, should we get into you came up with the name, so I'll let you say it, but get into the next segment?
Yeah, let's do it. It's called, obviously we've heard a little bit about your background, but we have a segment called The Man Behind the Mantle. We have just a couple of personal, like fun questions. You know what, Cal, take the first question. I'll do the next one.
So I want to know, and I think we all do, what are your 1 to 2 most cherished collectibles? It can be anything, but like what comes to mind? 1 to 2.
It would change any day that you ask me this. I've got, I went to school for sports broadcasting. I got a check signed from Vin Scully. It's the dumbest thing. It was him like getting a limousine service for $160. So stupid, but Vin, as a Dodger fan, as a broadcaster, like he was the best thing in the world to me. And to have something from him like that, it's corny, but it's cool. Awesome. And then that helmet behind me is from the 2017 Daytona 500. Every driver who entered that race signed it. And I was working at NASCAR at the time. My job was to manage our relationship with Monster Energy. And it was their first race as the entitlement sponsors. It was the Monster Energy Cup. And so that was the first race. I've been working on this thing for a long time. The race was won by Kurt Busch, who was driving the Monster Energy car. So it felt like this like unbelievable moment where the sponsor and the driver, it all kind of worked out. And so to have something like that has that kind of connection to me, and all the drivers signed it, Dale Jr. and Kyle Busch and Jimmy Johnson and stuff like that. That's something that'll stick with me for a long time.
Awesome. Kind of segues right into my next question. So one of the answers might be what you just said, but you went to school to be a sports broadcaster. You did some radio play-by-play in college. We were told you even tried out for ESPN's broadcast competition show, Dream Job.
Yep.
Who would you say is your favorite current sports broadcaster, and who is your favorite all-time sports broadcaster?
I mean, all time it's Vin Scully or Chick Hearn. Both, like, to grow up in LA in the 80s and 90s and having those two guys call games was an unbelievable experience for me. Now, I think I love Mike Tirico. I think he's really good at what he does. I think Stephen Davis, who does the Dodger games and now is doing a lot of NFL, is also really good. I just think people who understand how to tell a story, but also know when to just shut up, is like being able to be silent at the right moment is just as important as knowing what to say when something big happens. Mm-hmm. And those guys just get it. Actually, just started a new PC of like sports broadcasters, sign cards of different broadcasters. So I'm trying to pull together all these things. I got Shams in the mail last week, so just trying to pull together a PC of like it's a little bit nerdy, but as a sports broadcast junkie to get auto cards from some of my heroes. Is
Love that. And quick follow up: what's your all time favorite catchphrase by a sports broadcaster?
I mean, Chick Hearn always used to end the games when it was saying the game was in the refrigerator and the eggs are cool and the jello's jiggling, and had this whole little thing. And that, like, it's such a silly thing to end the game with, but to me, like, it just brings me back to Magic Johnson and Kobe Bryant, guys like that running the court.
Love that. Mine, not that you're asking, but mine are. I'm such a big Knicks fan, as you could tell. I'm wearing the Knicks hat. Anything that Walt Frazier says, like it's just all the insane rhymes, it's just
insane.
And the crazy thing about him is, like, my kids are now watching him and they love him, and it's just like he's such an iconic guy, but it's like I feel like once he's gone, you lose all of like the
and there's nobody like him.
There's nobody like him.
You can't, there's a lot of these guys that you could say, all right, somebody else could step in and do similarly, but he's, it's like Barkley, there's not another Barkley. There's not another Frazier. There's some of these guys that, especially the guys that played, that have these personalities. They're one of ones. And whenever Frazier steps away, like whoever the Knicks get next, it's not going to be the same.
No, it's not. It's not. And Mike Breen, by the way, is another guy like I'm in the Tirico mold. Like, just
absolutely.
Great.
He's so good.
On the play-by-play. Cal, what's yours?
Yeah, so you spent a season working for the Commanders, shout out, who are playing fucking great football right now.
Amazing right now, yeah.
When you were in college, tell us your favorite memory or something from the locker room with the time you spent there.
Yeah, I mean, my job was I was a PR grunt. Like, I would just get stat sheets and stuff, and like during the game, I'd hand them out to the journalists that were there. And then after the game, I'd go into the locker room. Usually it was a visiting locker room most of the games. And I would just stick a tape recorder in front of the players as they were being interviewed, and try to get sound bites and then transcribe them and send them out. During the game was amazing because back then it'd be Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon. And if like the Eagles were in town, and Stephen A. Smith, and these guys would just sit at a table and just argue. Like what you'd see on PTI was what I would see at a table during, halftime, with these guys just yelling at each other and having a lot of fun. And it was before that they were who they are now. And so to be like my first time seeing who Stephen A. Smith was, I didn't grow up I didn't read the Inquirer or listen to Philly radio, was seeing him just sitting there arguing with Wilbon at a Skins game. So that was really cool. And then I got to see all these unbelievable players in the locker room, McNabb coming through and Javon Curse and Ray Lewis and stuff like that. Put a microphone in front of their face and get sound bites. Like from like a fan standpoint, I was in college, right? Like there's nothing cooler. And I wasn't getting to watch any Sunday football because I was at the games. I wasn't sitting in front of a TV watching, but I was in the locker room after. It was unbelievable.
That's crazy. I mean, it's funny. Yeah. I'm thinking about the players, but then you're talking about Wilbon and Kornheiser, like before PTI. That to me is like even more incredible to be like sitting with them while they're watching the game and hearing the banter between them.
Yeah.
That must have been incredible.
And to see it now, like at the time, I thought it was really cool and amusing, but then now to have seen what PTI has become, see what Stephen A. Smith does, and people think it's an act. And I think, like you like dial it up when the TV cameras are on, but this is the way that these guys were when nobody was paying attention, nobody was watching. They just got a lot of, they have love for sports and they love to argue about it and debate. And so to be able to see that was always super cool.
Love that. All right. Last question. So in our notes, it says that one of your dreams is to open a candy shop. And if you were to go into a candy shop, what candy are you putting in your bag?
Oh man. See, I think you guys have to just come with me to a candy shop and I'm going to give you an education like you've never seen before. I feel like I know more about candy and I have a bigger appreciation, but So I'm a huge, and TikTok blew it up in a way that I don't appreciate because I'm an OG. But there's a candy shop here in LA, it's Swedish candy called Soccer Bit. New York has Bonbon. It's similar. Bonbon's a little bit fancier, but Soccer Bit, and it's sour candy from Sweden, and it's more sour, chewier, better than anything you're going to get any of the companies that make it in the States. But they never have all the good stuff. They're always sold out. I just feel like I could do a better job.
Interesting. Okay.
Very interesting. Wait, what is it? What country is it from?
Sweden.
Because I'm a huge Australian licorice guy. You ever mess with the Australian licorice?
I have. Yeah, absolutely good. But this is like more of this would be in like the sour, or they call them like fizzy,
the sour,
category. I mean, they do have licorice that's similar, but I'm telling you, if the Bonbon shop in New York is worth going to, but it's become like it turned into a TikTok thing. So lines out the door, a bunch of 16-year-olds videotaping everything, and who knows if they're going to eat any of the stuff after the camera's off. So I'm waiting a little while before, now at TikTok, who knows what's going to happen? Like let that trend die so I can walk back into my shop and get the things that I really care about.
Yeah, you need to gatekeep. It's too bad. Right. TikTok blew that up. Right. That's unfortunate. Well, no, let's jump into the put on, put off. So, Evan, we told you a little bit before, but we're going to hit you with 15 different things, and you are going to tell us whether it's a put on or put off, and give us just a sentence spiel on why or why not. So, yeah, D, you go first. You do odd, I'll do even. You hit him first.
Okay. Sure. Good idea. Card grading.
Put off. To me, like anything under a 9, nobody cares about it anymore. Getting a 10 is really hard, and it's more for flipping. If you just care about it for your own reasons, who cares what the grade is?
Collector in you. Okay. Starting lineup figurines.
Oh, put on. But I played with them. Mine were none of them were pristine. Like all mine were out there. I played with them every damn day. But it's one of my favorite toys from childhood, and if I had them now, they would be out of the box too.
I was going to ask you, like, inside the box or out of the box. So that's a good. I love that you like them.
I mean, they're collectibles now, but they were toys, and they were cool toys, and like GI Joes or whatever. All that stuff was cool, but to be able to have like Michael Jordan and have him dunk on Brad Doherty or whatever, like that was cool.
I gave my youngest kid, a couple of them, and like they're still in the packaging, and sometimes he wants to take them out, and I'm like having this, crisis of whether or not I should let him do it. But
get
two. Right. What's that?
Get 2 of each. Keep one in the box and one for playing.
Good point. How about Gus Johnson calls?
I love Gus. I would say put on. It could be a little bit much, but he makes a fun game more fun.
True.
What about NFTs, digital collectibles?
Put off. I might regret that one day, but I don't totally get it.
Yeah. Got you. No, I hear you.
Me either, Cal. Cal's an NFT guy.
I mean, I get why some people like them. I just like for me, I like holding something. I like feeling something.
Yeah.
I'm old school. I told you I drive a car from 1988. Like I'm not. I like something that's like tangible for the way I collect.
Speaking of old school, how about the junk wax era of sports cards?
I love it. Put on. I mean, I just pulled last week. The 1990s score Bo Jackson. Like nothing is valuable. This thing is probably worth $10, but like pulling this was cooler to me than pulling anything in modern cards that would have been worth a lot more.
Facts.
What about raising capital as a startup founder?
Shit. I put off if you can get away with not doing it and bootstrap. That's the way that you should go. It's really hard to do that. And if somebody's willing to give you money and they're good people, I'm really lucky that my investors are people that I love and trust and can build with. But I hear more horror stories than success stories because it puts an undue amount of pressure on the business and you don't always have aligned incentives.
Hear you.
Okay. How about Fanatics' role in the sports card industry?
I'm put on. I mean, I think what they've been able to do, there's an article this week from Sportico showing like they've like really turned tops into a profitable business, which I know for a lot of collectors doesn't matter, but it's healthier because of the work that they're doing. I think that they've got the money and the ability to do a really good job. There's some downsides, certainly, if it becomes too much of a business and not enough for the collector. But for this to succeed, you need somebody to be making money at the top, and then it can provide opportunities for guys like us.
What about card breaking live streams?
Can I be neutral? Like, I think it's dangerous. I know too many people are spending way too much money on it. I also do it on occasion, and it's fun. And it's like, I think it brings a cool element to it. But I don't know in long term if it's healthy for collecting.
Got it. This is going to be provocative one, but Darren Ravel.
I'm put on. I think what he's done with collect, like he is obviously he can be polarizing, but he knows the space really well, and he's telling stories about collecting in ways that just haven't been done before. And I think he's helping bring eyeballs to it in cool ways. I think it's better for my business, for what we're trying to do. If a company like Collect is successful, the more eyeballs on this category, the better.
Not my cup of tea.
Just say that. I mean, but I think that's his brand, right? Like he wants either somebody to love him or hate him. Anybody in the middle is not helping his business.
He is polarizing. Yeah.
What about, and I feel like I know the answer here, but what about auto cards of sport broadcasters?
I am the biggest collector you'll ever meet of that. I've got 4 of them.
Okay.
Big put on.
Massive put on. Stamp that.
Yeah.
Massive.
Okay. How about the college transfer portal?
Put off. I mean, I don't want to sound like, get off my lawn old guy, but and I get why it's like that right now, but it's harder to be a fan. And I don't think it's healthy for the ecosystem. I wish that they'd put more guardrails around things and thought about NIL a little bit more before they just said, all right, screw it, let's just change everything. And I think it's gonna end up biting college sports in a big way over time.
It's like a completely different sport now, right? Like it's
not good for anybody. It's not good for the fan. It's not good for the players. Not good for the schools. I don't know how to fix it, but I don't feel like they did a good job with the current structure.
Mm.
What about the Billy Ripken fuckface card?
I've got one behind me. Somewhere up there. I'm put on by that one. I feel like it's something you have to have in your collection.
Yeah. Classic.
100%.
You're a NASCAR guy, former NASCAR guy. How about the movie Talladega Nights?
I'm put on. I think it's hilarious. But when I worked there, I can tell you that nobody in the sport loved it at the time. I joined after that movie, but I think people were worried that it made NASCAR fans and drivers kind of look silly. But I was a fan of the movie before I worked in the sport, and I think it's hilarious. I love it, and there's some truth to some of the scenes.
And I'm sure now that like they're years removed from it, they probably like it. Right?
Yeah, I think so. But the NASCAR world is really nervous, or we're always a little bit gun shy about the perception that it's for dumb rednecks. For good reason, and the movie kind of makes you feel like it's only dumb rednecks, and so I can see why some of the people who like live and breathe that sport found it a little bit offensive, but it made a lot of people pay attention that weren't paying attention before.
Right.
What about Maryland as a football school?
I hope none of my college friends see me or watch this pod, but I put off. I mean, it's a basketball school; it should be in the ACC. Football, like if they win, it's great, it's fun, but it should be a basketball school. It's like Gary Williams and Juan Dixon and Steve Blake, like that's Maryland.
I remember that team so vividly, and I'm a Big Ten guy myself, and I agree they should be in the ACC. It's so sad.
It is.
Derek, you know who went to Maryland, and that's the only other person I know who went to Maryland. Being a Canadian guy, Michael Goldstein went to Maryland.
Did he?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
He did.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He seems like
one of our previous coworkers, Evan.
Last one for you is former player podcasts as a genre.
I like it. There are too many of them. Not everybody who used to play has anything interesting to say, but some of the guys I think it can be really funny, and some of the people that you wouldn't expect to be funny have been funny. So I don't know. I like it. but I can only listen. I watch the clips. I don't listen to any of the full episodes.
Same. Who are your favorites just off the clips?
I mean, I think JJ Redick used to do a really nice job. I think that Matt Barnes is way more entertaining as a podcaster than he was good as a player. And I'm a UCLA guy and he played in the Lakers. Like I loved him, but he's better now. Jeff Teague is really funny. Like there's some guys that you just wouldn't have expected that do a good job at that kind of stuff. But we don't need to have just you retire. You don't need to fire up a microphone. Not everybody needs a podcast.
Right. It seems like every single person is now starting one.
Right.
But to your point, I hated Kevin Garnett as a player, and now I find him to be incredible as a personality.
Totally. And the clips are amazing. I was watching a bunch of clips yesterday. White Chocolate. There's all this. He's been going and doing a bunch of podcast interviews, and you think about this kid, Jason Williams, scrawny little guy out of West Virginia and the things he did on the court. And then now to hear him talk about his strategy when he's playing and the way he's doing it, I don't want to listen to him as a host of a podcast, but give me 45 seconds of him explaining how he used to pass the ball and his mindset from it. And I'm wrapped. So for me, if you can just give me the clips, I love it, but I don't need an hour of it.
Right.
That's a great point around podcasting as a whole, right? Is we enjoy the long form and these conversations, being able to do them. And obviously, this is 36, so we've been doing it for a little while now, but I do think it's one of those things where people can get sort of it's especially with the attention span nowadays. If you can get the quick hit, 45, 60 second context, dopamine, you're going to get more.
But you have to sometimes tape for an hour, right? Like you got to do an hour worth
to get that.
To get the 30 seconds anybody cares about. That's the tough part.
For sure. 100%. With that, let's get into the put on segment. We are going to start with blog, article, or newsletter. Evan, I know you said you had some. Hit us.
Got a newsletter. It's called After School. This woman that used to work at 776 and a bunch of magazines, writes it's all about Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and Gen Z and Gen Alpha and trends, social media trends. And you just learn about what kids are into, what teenagers are into in a way that I'm not going to consume all that content, and to give me a daily hit of here are the things that are trending. Here's what people are talking about. She watches so much TikTok, and if I don't have to watch it to learn that much, it's very valuable and it's always entertaining.
Not to put you on the spot, but what is trending right now, or what's the last thing you saw from that newsletter that you can give us a little insight?
Yesterday, there's a bunch of skincare stuff. I haven't read today's. There's a bunch of skincare stuff and political, people, how Gen Z, Gen Alpha are reacting to the election, to the inauguration and stuff like that.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I'll definitely check that out. And it's daily. It's daily.
It's 5 days a week. 6 days, I think. 6 days a week. Yeah.
Good.
It's quick though. It's just
Yeah.
Here's a headline. Here are a couple of lines about it. 6 minutes, not even, and you're done, and you've learned enough you need to know for the day.
I'm curious for the both of you. Are you guys news? If you had, you've got that one. Maybe Derek, you have a few. Whatever, I might have a few. But would you guys read 2, 3, 4 newsletters if they're short and bite size every morning? Is that your vibe, or are you more if you get to it?
I do, but I also think a lot of it is just because of the work that I do, and I need to learn as much as I can about a lot of different things very quickly. If I was retired and sitting around, I would probably get the New York Times delivered to my house on paper.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm kind of I have stuff that I read daily that gets dropped in the inbox. And then I have the weekly stuff, Tim Ferriss, I think it's called 54321, and then the James Clear one. So I'm consuming so much content at all times, and I have it different stuff for different reasons. But I'm also impressed by somebody that's able to just keep it up every single day. It's such a grind to do. And I used to do a little bit of that myself, but yeah, it's very hard.
I write, I edit one every week and I write one every week. And it takes me significantly longer than I ever would have expected it would. It's just, writing is hard. Even if it's aggregation, it's hard just to look at a blank screen and try to make something of it.
Yeah, it really is.
Derek, you have a blog?
Yes, I do have a blog. Yeah. So This is an old blog post, and it's by a guy named Tim Urban. Are you familiar with Tim Urban, Evan?
Vaguely, yeah, I know the name.
Love this guy. He has a blog called Wait But Why, and he also wrote a book that I read called What's Our Problem? A self-help book for societies, which is basically like breaking down the decline of US politics, and made me realize that I kind of wanted to unsubscribe like from it altogether. But the reason that I love Tim Urban is that his style is just so funny and thought provoking, and then he does these illustrations that kind of like accompany all of his posts, and that he uses to support all of his points. So he has an article that's a decade old that I like reread. I remember reading it back in the day, but I reread it. It's called 10 Types of Odd Friendships You're Probably Part of. And it's first off, it's just fucking hilarious, but he like has like basically what he does is, I don't want to spoil it, so I'll just kind of keep it high level. He outlines the different tier groups of friends that people have. He has all these really funny friendship graphs, and then he has like a listicle of 10 odd friendships that you have. And just as an example of a few of them, there's I listed 4 of them here in my notes. There's the friend in the group that you can't be alone with under any circumstances. Okay. There's the non-character breaking friend that you always have to be on with, which like I have so many of those people in my life where it's just like, I know I have to like do this whole routine, whatever. There's the historical friend. I know we all have the historical friend where like you wouldn't be friends with them if it wasn't for like meeting them in your childhood. And then there's the non-parallel life paths friendship, which is basically Cal and I's friendship because he's, in his 20s and I'm 40. So anyways, it's like definitely longer than a typical article, but just a great read when you have some downtime. So check it out. I'll drop it. I have the link to it, so I'll drop it just in our chat. And yeah, check it out. Tim Urban is one of my all-time favorites. And if you don't know about him, you should definitely look him up. He also has a really great TED talk that he gave that was hilarious, and you can kind of like get a sense of who he is. So that's my put on.
No, I think the Tim Urban, I remember you talking about him before, and I checked him out. And this is the 10 Types of Friends is bang on. I love reading shit like that, so I'm definitely going to check it out. But yeah, so next, I believe we all have podcasts. Evan, yours sounded interesting. Hit us with the podcast.
It's called the Confessions of Anthony Raimondi. I listened on Spotify. I imagine you can get it anywhere, but it's a story. It's kind of true crime. The Pope, John Paul I, died 33 days into his papacy. He was young or young, for a pope and in good shape. And he died under kind of murky circumstances. And this, New York Italian mobster came out, a few years back, wrote a book and said that he was part of assassinating the Pope, that the Pope was starting to look into finances about some of these Vatican banks that were funneling money to different things, embezzling and laundering. And he started looking into it, and the mob got worried, and so they decided to knock him off. And this guy was part of it. And you listen to the podcast, you got to make your own decision if this dude is full of shit, or if he's like, is he a character? Is he just trying to make up stories, or is it all real? But I thought, somebody who is fascinated by the mob and also fascinated by the Vatican, and then loves good storytelling. It like had the three of the things I need to be entertained for 8 episodes.
That sounds really interesting. Two things on that. One is there's so much content out there, like on social, of like former mobsters talking about the things that they've done. Yeah. And you're always wondering, like, first off, like you're telling me about people you've just like murdered, and somehow you're just like free and walking around, and it's hard to tell what's real and what's not real. The other thing I was just going to ask is Boardwalk Empire. Did you ever watch that back in the day or no?
I've seen a few episodes. I didn't go all the way through it. Yeah.
As somebody that is really into the mob, you would, if you really had some time to like watch that, one of my all-time favorite shows. But that sounds like a pot I got to get into.
Yeah,
I love history like that.
Yeah, I feel like I've never really been a big, crime pod, but just crime show in general guy. But like my girlfriend and our friends are getting into that stuff, and so I definitely will finally check it out, Evan. I'll check it out and let you know what I think. I'll give it a
You're
shot.
Canadian,
But,
like we're you know, on this side of the border. I think just crime, we're like, you know, predisposed to have to deal with all the time. But you guys have, you know, it's like nice and safe up there.
Yeah, so friendly up there.
Yeah, it's a bubble for sure. We're shielded. Yeah, my podcast, and I've listened to this one several times. I just want to shout it out because it is probably one of my favorite episodes of all time. And whenever someone asks me, you know, I'm younger. I'm 23. I've got, you know, different friends in different places, and some are entrepreneurial, some aren't. And I was like, look, like, you know, I want to do this. I want to make things happen. What should I be consuming? What should I listen to? Because there's a bunch of shit out there. And the place I always send them first is obviously, you know, and Derek and I, you and I have talked about Naval ad nauseum, but Naval, his tweet storm, you know, the how to get rich. But I think it was maybe, and he's obviously been on Rogan, and that's a great episode, but it was less than a year ago. I want to say it was like March, April of 24. He released a sort of a monologue pod on his channels that's like 3 hours 40, and it sort of breaks down his tweet storm, but you can listen to it, and he's just talking through everything he goes over in that. So, you know, like, again, the playing long-term games, building wealth, not money, focusing on skills that scale, all sort of concepts that he goes through in that. But it's just super insightful to hear him talk it out, and essentially, you know, he's prompted, but monologue for 3 hours 40. And so I just wanted to call that out. Super fucking powerful. And I love that one. So,
Evan, you follow Naval Ravikant at all?
I see a lot of his stuff hit my timeline.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough people I see on Twitter who are like, you know, either regurgitating what he has or trying to be him, and you know, so I feel like I get my fill. But the stuff I've read from him is really interesting. I don't need more of the voice in my head.
Yeah, I would just say if you ever get a chance, listen to his episode with Joe Rogan, because that one episode kind of changed my life in a big way.
That's a big
and then he has a book called the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. Wasn't written by him; it was written by somebody else. But just just like one of the most clear-headed, like articulate guys. And you see so many of these guys that are like, you know, they talk and like all the terminology, and he's just like simplifies everything and takes the most complex things and kind of like really is able to, you know, communicate them. But brilliant, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
I have a pod. It's I just listened to it. I mentioned Tim Ferriss Show, one of my favorite pods. He had Chris Sacca on. You guys familiar with Chris Sacca?
Yeah, I've seen some of the clips. I haven't listened to the full episode.
The clips are good, and that's kind of like what made me listen to the full episode. So obviously he's a very successful entrepreneur, venture capitalist. He's got a company called Lower Carbon Capital, which is a climate change related fund, and early investor in Twitter, Uber, Instagram. He was a guest shark on Shark Tank for a few episodes, very philanthropic, always wearing these like Western style cowboy shirts and whatever. And I think he's a little bit polarizing to a lot of people. But I think the thing that I've always respected and admired and appreciated about him is just how outspoken he is and how distinct his like viewpoint is. And really, I think the most underrated thing about him is his storytelling ability, because every single time he's interviewed, I'm just like locked in.
Yeah,
just like
he's good.
He's like really has a great way of you know, telling stories. And so in this pod, he kind of talks a little bit about his roots in upstate New York, how his childhood shaped him. He talks about kind of like getting into trouble and how that kind of like, you know, was a great thing for him. He's a lot about living on your own terms and the trade-offs that he's made like throughout his life. And then they touch on hustle culture and AI and raising kids in this like technology age. The one part about the hustle culture just being like, it's so funny because there are all these people like, you know, Gary V that like were very much making that hustle culture content. And then there was this whole backlash towards it, you know, and then people kind of like backpedaled, and he's just like of the opinion, like, no, like if you, it's kind of like the startup mentality. Like you're going to have to fucking work your ass off. And like, you know, he believes in hustle culture basically. But, anytime, like I said, anytime I ever see that he's on a podcast, I listen, and he's just a great storyteller. So
yeah, the clips got me interested enough that I have the full episode bookmark.
Awesome. Yeah, you're going to love it. It's great. It's so good.
So to go to the next creators, Evan, did you have a creator?
No creator. I got like artists and stuff, but no creator.
Artists. Okay. D, you hit us with your creator, and then we'll get to artists.
Okay, just quick. It's a guy that I found on TikTok named Omar Likes to Talk. That's the handle. Omar Likes to Talk. And what he does is 60-second highlights of former NBA players. And he goes, these are 60-second highlights to see if they would be a superstar, an all-star, an average player, a role player, or a bum in today's NBA. And so every clip is basically a highlight reel of guys I grew up watching when I was a kid in the late 80s, early 90s. It's like Sean Kemp, Kenny Anderson, Tom Chambers, Nick Van Exel. Each one has this cool little like Tetris sounding rap instrumental in the background. And this guy Omar's a young guy, but he obviously knows his ball, and he watches and he provides his commentary. And it's just really fun to watch because you're getting to experience these awesome but forgotten about players through the eyes of someone who's kind of just getting exposed to them for the first time. Now, obviously, if you're watching highlights, you're not exactly getting like the most accurate kind of like depiction of a player because they all look like amazing, but you could still kind of get the gist of like someone's game through a minute of their highlights, and just love it as a clean concept. Like have you guys seen any of this guy's
videos? It sounds like exactly what I'd like to watch.
Yeah.
It's so good. That's one. I just want to shout out one other thing, just because you're so big in the sports broadcast space. I mentioned this, I don't know if it was last episode or 2 episodes ago, but Evan, do you know about a handle called Shepmates?
No.
They're like these two, I think they're from Australia, 2 guys that lip sync and reenact like classic sports calls.
Oh man.
And they are so funny. They do like the Hornets announcers, and they do like a lot of these baseball announcers. I gotta send you some. They're so funny.
I haven't heard of them.
Yeah, they're great. So those are mine.
The concept of the 60-second highlights and reacting to whether they'd be an all-star, it's fucking brilliant. I mean,
brilliant.
It's the content creators where it's like you have a niche and you can like pump a bunch of video because he can have highlights of everyone, but it's just so interesting the sport overlap with that. And I wonder where I'm going is I wonder if people are doing it for other sports or not, because you could do that across sport.
Right.
Yeah. They should.
I mean, they definitely should. And I bet you there's gonna be some like copycat type of creators that do the same thing, because sometimes like those, you get a simple formula like that works, and it's just like away you go, right? Like you could just do it a million times. There's so many players, and you're right, you could do it across any sport. And I just, you want to know something? I love watching the younger generation. Like I love these reaction videos to old songs that they've never heard before. I just love watching the younger generation experience like the best stuff from me and Evan's generation for the first time. There's nothing like more charming, and like, it's just great. I don't know. I love that style of content.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think it could go the other way too. There's definitely a bunch of shit that you wouldn't know from, and maybe you would. Evan, do you have kids?
No kids, no.
No kids. And Derek, your kids are what age again?
9 and 6.
9 and 6. Okay. Yeah. So you would get it a little bit with kids, but so Evan, because you again, you talked about it in pre, but artists, I need to hear them.
So I've got there's an artist that I love, Julian Pace. He does sports, a lot of sports, not all, but he has these like hulking figures that he does in what looks like colored pencil or something. It'll be like Larry Bird, or he'll do an F1 car. And he's got a good following, and his stuff sells for a lot of money. I don't know any of his stuff, but the reason why I bring him up, one, because he's dope and you guys would really dig his stuff, but also a month ago he put out on Instagram, he just said, like, look, hey, send me your address. Anybody DM me your address, I'll send you a letter in the mail. I did it, didn't think about it again. Yesterday I opened up my mailbox and I have this letter in the mail from Jay Pace. Can't remember who that name is. Like, who the fuck is this? Open up the letter, and I don't know if you guys can read it, but it's a quote from Son of a Woman. And Harry, Jimmy, Trent, wherever you are, fuck you too. And then underneath it says, if you haven't seen Son of a Woman yet, go watch it. It's a requirement. Love, Julian. So I get this in the mail. Like, who the fuck sent me this? I have no idea. I don't know anybody named Julian. I got no idea what this thing is for. And I sat there for like 10 minutes, and then finally it hit me that I DM'd this dude my address, and this is what he sent. So now I have like an original piece of art from this artist that I think is really dope, but the way that he did it is to me is hilarious.
That's fire.
But you guys should follow him on IG, because his sports stuff is awesome. I mean, I love his stuff. I would love to one day own like an actual piece of his art.
What's the handle?
Julian Pace is his name. I don't remember I can send you, but Julian, last name Pace. It's probably like Julian Pace Art or something like that. But you guys would really dig his stuff. He did some old NASCAR stuff like Dale Earnhardt. I'd love to have plenty of basketball players. Everything he does, Pele, like it all has a really cool look to him, and they're really big pieces.
I'm looking at him right now. It's incredible.
It's
incredible. Like the Patrick Ewing and like the Rodman.
Exactly. And some of you look at the stuff online. It's it sells for $6-10 grand. I mean, it's not cheap. But
even just like the retro Predators, like some of the actual equipment too is fucking sick. Yeah.
This stuff is great.
I need this Patrick Ewing one. Oh my god, so dope.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm glad you. I don't know if it's like crayon or colored pencil or what he uses to create it, but he's got a great look to all.
It's funny.
Stuff.
They all have like these like broad shoulders, and I'm thinking about like Mitch Robinson. That's like what he actually looks like on the Knicks. He's just got the crazy shoulders like that. That's awesome. Is there another artist that you had?
One other dude that I love, Sir Collect a lot. He makes custom toys. During the pandemic, he started messing around making custom toys, and now he sells them online. I've got 4 of them from him. My all-time favorite movie, Tommy Boy. So he's got Tommy and Richard that he created, and then I just picked up recently not just one from Billy Madison, but Steve Buscemi's character from Billy Madison.
That's amazing.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Danny McGrath. So these one-of-one toys, that's his little avatar, but they're all one-of-one.
Does he have the lipstick? Does he have the lipstick on?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can see it, but he's rocking very, very red lips.
Oh my god, that's incredible.
So I got 4 of his pieces, but he does really cool stuff. He does things that are like very contemporary, very modern, and then he's Derek, he's probably about our age, and so a lot of the things that he ends up doing are things that he would have liked as a kid that you and I would really resonate with. So whenever he puts up something from like a 90s movie, I generally will throw in a bid and see if I can get lucky.
I mean, bro, this is brilliant. I'm on his page right now, like crisscross and like.
Oh, it's hilarious. And he does custom work. Like you could get something commissioned if you had an idea of something you really wanted. I usually, if he posts something that I like and see, then he has like an auction platform, and you can get things for a steal. Like some of these things end up selling for like $100, $150. Some go a lot more than that, but it's not prohibitively expensive to get something that's one-of-one from a really dope artist and a cool guy.
I can't get over this. There's one that says "Saved by Ravel," and it's like a figurine of Darren.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is so cool. I love that. Wow. Those are good shouts. We on our last one, we talked a little bit about artists too. And I mean, that's one thing about social that I really do love is like a lot of these artists you would never know about, right? Unless like there was these platforms where they now have the place to kind of show their stuff and really show the whole kind of like, library of their stuff. But those two, great put-ons. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have not a physical artist, I have a music artist. You're wearing the Palace kit. So it's not proper drill. It's soft. But this guy Sainté, I actually swear he's from South London. Someone put me on him recently, and I've been fucking with his shit. But yeah, UK rapper, super chill vibe, nice beats. The two songs, Champagne Shots and Styling, are just a vibe. Add to the playlist. Again, Evan, I don't know your vibe. D, you would fuck with it. But Sainté is my music artist.
Give me a
Um,
comp. Like, give me a comp on him.
it's tough to, bro. He's very unique. It's tough to comp because he's British. It's like it's more. I can't comp him. It's like the drill. It's the higher sped up version of like Brent Fayez a little bit, but more
Mm-hmm.
like that would be my closest comp. But it's tough to comp. Go
Okay.
listen and let me
Also,
know. Let me know what you think. But
maybe I wasn't paying attention, but are you now standing on the surface of the sun? Like, what's going on? You got like the full like glare going on your
bro,
face.
it seems every day at this time. It was chilling before. Yeah,
I thought the
I
sun
would.
doesn't come out in Edmonton. No,
We get a lot of sun. The sun doesn't
you
come out
do.
in London. Yeah, the sun is
Ah,
fucking. Was there last week. Didn't come out once. But um, who's your artist?
I don't music.
Yeah, music.
I don't have any.
Oh, you don't got music.
I don't have any music. I just wanted to throw two other just creators out there. I'm not going to talk about them too much, but just because we have a collectible guy and like a broadcast guy, and one is Jeff Eisenband at Jeff Eisenband, a buddy of
Yeah.
mine that I worked with, who I think is like a new age sports broadcaster. That's one of the best follows on Twitter. And just really understands the platform and how to engage his community. The other one I have to throw out there is Frank Hrelja. I'm sure you're
Yeah.
familiar with him,
Oh, yeah.
Evan, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just a great green screen storyteller, tells a lot of great stories about different collectibles and different sports. And he's on Trove, and he's starting to do some stuff with Matt Barnes for All the Smoke. So
Mhm.
just wanted to mention those two guys. I think is that it for all the put-ons, or does Evan? Do you have one more?
I've got a website, a new app that just launched. I think it's still in beta, and I haven't really messed around with it. But at least from what I've seen, it's called Doji, Doji, and it's AI avatar shopping. And so you basically, put in your measurements and photos of yourself, and then they create like a full size, life size, whatever app size version
Yeah.
of you. Um, and you can go through these storefronts and put on the clothes that they have that they're selling, and it's meant for high fashion, so you see some really weird shit in there, and like giant pants and like crazy hats or whatever. But I think as it the technology develops, the thought of like being able to go and whatever, it's Mitchell and Ness or Nike or the Gap, it doesn't matter, and try stuff on, see what it looks like on you before you pull the trigger on it. And they're starting with this high fashion version of it. It's just really cool. I think it's really interesting and unique. No idea if it's going to work, but it's something that I think we all like. Oh, that would be cool if I could just like, that's a cool shirt. I wish I knew what it looked like on me. The fact that technology is finally getting to the place that's going to be possible, and you don't need to just hope that the thing fits and looks good, but I think it's going to be a game changer for fashion.
I'm gonna
And
check
huge,
that out.
yeah, Cal. Well, before you say what you're gonna say, huge for guys too, like who
Yeah,
don't love going out and going
Yeah.
shopping. It's like such a
right.
pain in the ass. But what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say I'm gonna check that out, but what we have to do is we need to go timestamp when I said my idea, which was exactly that, but more, like less high fashion focused, more practical, and figure out when I said that and then date back. So yeah,
Do you
we'll.
remember, Cal? You remember the name I came up with for it?
No.
He pitched this half baked idea.
Yeah.
I called it AI Need a Medium. That's what the name of your concept
Yes.
was. You don't
Now I
remember
remember.
that?
I like it.
I do. And it was in 2023 in May
Oh wow.
is when
Oh
I
wow.
yeah. Now I remember you. But yeah, that's dope. I mean, fuck, man, with AI and technology, yeah, the world's our oyster. I'm curious to see how that plays out because yeah, Derek, to your point, people are I don't want to go to the mall and have to shop, and I'm
No.
medium in some things, large in others. it's tough to order the right size online. So to me, that just makes sense. D, I know you had something that you wanted to end on.
Yeah, so I guess just today happens to be my dad's birthday. I lost my dad a couple of years ago to cancer. So I've been thinking about him a lot today. I actually have this, because Evan was on, I have this picture that's like near and dear to me, and it's of my dad when he was like a hippie, like with his afro with Walt Frazier. Okay, and it's signed to him. He did some advertising work back in the day and became kind of friendly with Walt. And so this hangs in my house, and it's just like I've had it forever. And I always think about, whenever I see it, it just gives me so many good memories. But yeah, just thinking a lot about him today, and thought I wanted to just give a shout out to him because I love him and I miss him. And just on the sports collectible tip, just thought I would show you that picture.
It's cool that you have that and like something like that interesting and special to connect back to him. Yeah,
for sure. So yeah, you know what? This has definitely been one of my favorite episodes to do. Evan,
a lot of fun, guys. I'll do this with you any day you want. I love this stuff.
Yeah, we would love to have you back on. I didn't even get to the showing you my old school, wrestlers and stuff.
Those look like they've been well played with.
My kids, these are the real collectible ones, and my kids smash them. And
those are way cooler than anything that kids are buying today. They're a way cooler toy than you're gonna find in the toy store right now.
It's so true. The other ones just fall apart. But like I said, man, it's been great to chop it up with you. We'll definitely have you back on, and we wish you a lot of good luck with Mantel.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you. Thank you for tuning into the Put On Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and don't forget to follow us on social @the Put On Pod.